And hey there, it's me Mudlink and welcome back to some more The Greatest Eternity Adventure. So last time, we took on the first part of this long-ass trial, got to see the admittedly hilarious Skulkin brothers. We got to see that they ended up tampering with the crime scene after the murder happened, so we gotta press them for that. Let's go. Simple, easy, go into it right away. Order, please. Let us resume proceedings. Witnesses, you will now retake the stand. I presume you heard the defense counsel's summation examination. Oh, yeah, Governor. I did, Gov, I did. Mr. and Mr. Skulkin. God blimey! This is gonna be hard work. Earlier in this trial, you gave the following testimony about your actions after you entered Windy Banks. Well, it was better than soon as, wasn't it? It was, Nash, it was. Didn't even have time to pull me dukes out me Lucy lockets. However, that was a lie. You brothers. God blimey! On the night in question, you rifled through the items on the victim's counter. We never done nothing of the sort. How'd you figure that out? You will now give formal testimony once again. You will tell the court precisely what happened on the night in question. And this time you will tell the truth. Each lie that passes your lips serves to increase the severity of your punishment. And that, gentlemen, may deal a crushing blow to your chances of ever seeing the light of day again. A thought worth pondering, perhaps. Say no more, Gov. We hear ya. We'll blab, we'll squeak, we'll peach. Alright, we did knock a few things over, but we weren't rifling up for nothing. It was when we heard the gunshot, see? Made the throats jump and all that stuff went flying. I mean, it didn't have to give me a fright. We was thinking the shooter would come out the door and get us next. We stuck everything back where we found it and escaped straight into him in the black. We couldn't have shot the pawnbroker, see? We never even had a chance, did we? So you admit to the defense's accusation. You did indeed ransack Mr. Windyback's countertop on the night in question. No ransack, Governor, no. That's right, Nash. That's right. It's more like we tied it up. Yeah. Sorry. By their own admission, these brothers entered the pawnbroker under dubious circumstances. However, they panicked and fled on hearing the gunshot, having first made good their mess. What you say? We hardly sound like roughs at all. We don't, Nash, we don't. Can't he make us sound a bit more cutthroat? Can't just be coincidence that these men showed up at Windy Banks that night. There's more to their testimony than meets the eye. I'm sure of it. So, I'm pressed every statement except for the second one first. If that's the case, then why didn't you testify to that effect in the first place? Well, you know, we ain't exactly squeaky clean, are we? Wait, Nash, wait. If we admitted to something like that, people would think we was up to no good. What's that ring out, me old China? We don't land ourselves in even more trouble. And in fact now, as a result of lying in your previous testimony, that's exactly what you've done. Landed yourself in even more trouble. Ah, well, that's rotten luck. says the rotten apple eater. Witnesses, explain your actions to the court. Why did you ransack the victim's counter? We never ransacked nothing. Rotten ash, right. Well, look, we tidied the place up. No, shit myself if I were in their shoes and in their pants. Sorry. So you didn't try to open the storeroom door then? Not in your life. It went deathly quiet after that, it did. Put the wind right up me. Well, anyway, the door was locked, wasn't it? No way that was opening? Yes, of course. It was locked from the inside, or so we've been led to believe. It was, Gov, it was. From the inside. Right, so we had no way of knowing what was going on in there, did we? Unless there was some other way to get a view of the inside of the storeroom. Like through the keyhole or a spy hole, perhaps. Don't ring no bells. Don't light no lights. We had to cut and run because we never noticed anything like that. We're still cutting our teeth in this game, see, but one day we'll really cut the mustard. Please cut it out. But as we know, behind that door was the victim's lifeless body, with the accused not 2 feet away. Yes, unfortunately. Gina was in there unconscious, with the gun in her hand. To confirm, would it be correct to say that neither of you set foot inside the storeroom? That's right, Gov. That's right. Couldn't have, even if we wanted to. Yes, whereupon you fired a shot from your own gun at Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Oh, yeah, we was a bit hasty there. We was, Nash, we was. Truth be told, I was already shaking like a leaf when you lot turned up. If you're shaking like a leaf, don't put a loaded gun in your hand. Don't put a loaded gun in your hand. Good advice, miss. Good advice. Truth be told, your mind went totally blank. Before your mind goes totally blank, make sure you don't have a loaded gun in your hand. Mental note made. Mental note made, miss. After that, we laid it down the street, but apparently we looked dodgy the coppers or something. So they clapped the darbies on us like winking. After you'd been handcuffed, the police found this revolver in your possession, correct? Well, yeah. Well, listen, that proves it, don't it, eh? And why should we believe that? Hey, what? Well, because it's true, innit? The place was still empty when we went in. At that time, the victim was already in the storeroom, having been forced to open the door by the accused who had a gun to his head. In other words, on the night in question, these two witnesses never even laid eyes on the proprietor of the pawnbrokery, Mr. Windybank. Correct. You got it, mister. Down to a T. So the Skulkin brothers never actually encountered Mr. Windybank. Is that really true, I wonder? That's it. That's the full extent of their testimony. What is it, Runo? You look very fierce. I could pour you some herbal tea if you're tired. Oh, thank you, but I'm fine. But being such a logical thinker, you'll probably laugh. But I feel as though these brothers are still hiding something important. It is nothing more than a feeling, though. I have no proof to support it. Well, feelings can be very logical at times. Sorry. People's expressions, the movement of their eyes, the words they choose. You can take all that in, and your brain will quietly analyze it to come up with a feeling like you described. You've concluded that there's something suspicious about this testimony without knowing why, that's all. I think you should trust your instincts. Iris, thank you. Sometimes I think if she's 10 years old, I must be 5. Alright, we did knock a few things over, but we weren't rifling for nothing. Why did I read it? Anyway, press this one statement now. So what you're saying is, the sound of the gunshot shocked you so much you knocked all those things off the counter. Well, shock one of us that much, yeah? This bag of nerves need to learn to keep his shirt on. Look, it was loud, alright, blimey. Me dead granny would have woken up with that bang. Big brother screamed like a bloomin' baby and fell over on the counter. He knocked over a load of books, a candlestick, and some skull whatnot. That got tangled in some marionette. Was knocked over a picture frame, what knocked them stairs on the floor. Really mastered working quietly then. Well, racket, me granny would have been scared into her grave at a clatter like that. So in short, the gunshot took you by surprise. And then some, I mean, it was quiet as a mouse and then all of a sudden, BAM! Inspector Gregson, do you have something to add? Like I keep saying, I don't appreciate being lumped in with these scoundrels. No, something to add about their testimony. You seemed to react just now at what Mr. Skulkin said. Did it make you think of something? It's probably nothing, of course. I wouldn't even bother to mention it, only... Well, the fact is, cases don't get solved if you ignore the little details. How about you just tell us what's on your mind? As you know, we brought these fellas into the yard for questioning last night. The statement they gave then told a slightly different story to what they're saying now. Did it? You claimed you heard the victim shout something out before the gunshot. Might have, Gov, might have. Does ring a bell now you mention it. Granted, it's only a minor detail, but still. I can't help feeling like perhaps you've been a bit sloppy with your testimony here. Eh, fellas? If I discover the witness's testimony hasn't been any more sloppy than it has hitherto proven to be, I shall be forced to bring the very harshest punishment to bear against them. Easy, easy. We'll get it right this time. I said, yep, it's all coming back to me now. Then speak. Supplement your testimony with whatever details have miraculously returned to your questionable mind, sirs. Right you are, Gov. So in fact, you heard the voice and the gunshot almost simultaneously? We did, Gov, we did. Although, I suppose if we're being honest, you've heard a kind of wavering voice before the yell and all. If you don't get shot, give me that gun! Bam! Kind of thing. A career in acting tragically missed. And where were their voices coming from, could you tell? Of course we could. From the other side of that door behind the counter it was. From the storeroom where the victim was found dead. And the voice you heard, it was that of the victim, Mr. Windybank. On my granny's life, of course it was. On his granny's life, of course it was. So that would mean that you both knew Mr. Windybank and the sound of his voice? So that would mean what? What, Nash, what? Any ideas? Yes, Counsel, indeed it would. No. We didn't know the geezer. How was I supposed to deny it when that bloke in all the fancy club was giving us the evil eye? If you value your lives, you will ensure your testimony is accurate and true. On my granny's life it is. On his granny's life it must be. It's a good job his granny's dead. To summarize then, immediately after hearing the voice of the victim, you then hear the gunshot, causing you to stumble and upset the items on the counter, scattering them over the shop floor. You make it sound like we're clumsy. Don't forget we tied it up after like good little boys. Anyway, the way I see it, hang on. So you're saying that on the night in question, the victim, Mr. Windybank, was wielding a gun. Is that correct? I say, Gov. You got the picture? Hey, he is, Nash, he has. No question. And yet, photographic evidence obtained immediately after the incident clearly shows that Mr. Windybank was not holding a firearm of any description. Hey, you what? Gordon Bennett, that ain't right. There can be no question that the victim's revolver was used in the incident. I would remind the court that Mr. Winniebank's gun was found at the scene. Not only was it identified as the murder weapon, but it was found in the accused's hand. Yeah, Motula used the victim's own gun to finish him off. Give me that gun. Bam. Kind of thing. See exactly where you are, right there. Huh? The crime had taken place as if you so colorfully described in your testimony. It would give rise to an undeniable and insignificant inconsistency in the final moments you just acted out. Goodness, are you sure, counsel? You intrigue me, my learned friend. Let's see some evidence to support your claim. What's the proof that demonstrates this inconsistency in the witness's portrayal of the victim's final moments? It would just be either the picture or the autopsy report, which is here. According to their testimony, the witnesses claim to have heard a shout of "Give me that gun," followed by the gunshot. Indeed, with the two events happening almost simultaneously, or so we've been led to believe. Yes, that's right. Now, if that testimony is true, it would mean that at the moment of death, the victim and his attacker would have been facing each other. However, in the autopsy report, it clearly states that the victim died instantly after being shot from behind. So as I stated before, there is an undeniable inconsistency in your testimony, Mr. and Mr. Skulkin. Yeah, gah! Oh, but it's the God's honest truth. It is, Nash. It is. When he was shot that night, the shopkeeper had a gun in his hand. We saw with our own bleeding eyes. But did I hear you right just now? You actually saw Mr. Winniebank holding a gun. Something like that. Something like that might have slipped out. Ladies and gentlemen, you've all just heard the admission by these two witnesses that on the night in question, they actually saw, with their own eyes, the victim wielding a gun. Which can only mean that despite their testimony to the contrary, the Skulkin brothers must have encountered the victim in person. Nash, nah! Order! 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 Witnesses, explain yourselves at once. Well, the thing is, it weren't supposed to, It would seem that my previous warning fell on deaf ears. I made it quite clear that false witness would be the death of you. Am I to understand that you replaced the untruths of your original testimony with renewed lies? Ever so sorry, Governor. Truth is, cut it out, Nash, cut it out. If we blab now, you know what it'll do to us. He? What are they talking about? Let me make your position here perfectly clear. You will talk. There's no other option available to you. Ralph, come on. The game's up. But you have our guts for goddess. In case it hasn't sunk in yet, no matter how hard you try to hide it, the truth will come out. The night in question, it is now apparent that you brothers met face to face with the victim. I demand that you testify again to explain the precise circumstances under which this meeting took place. Well. Do we have to? On pain of death. I suggest you make yourselves fully aware that this is your very last chance to tell the truth. Witness testimony. Hang on. I gotta do something. Alright, I'm back. Alright, so we just go inside the gaff, and he heaved a sigh of relief when the geezer showed his mug. Give me that gun, he bellowed. Then he flew at us like he was possessed. I thought we'd had it. For an old geezer, the bloke was strong as an ox. He chucked me over the counter. I pulled my gun on him, and then he legged it through that door into the back room. We never had nothing to do with killing him. That's all. What the fuck's happening in the corner of my eye? Whatever. That's all what happened, I swear. So now you're telling us that moments before the victim was killed in the storeroom, you in fact encountered him in the main part of the shop. Well, yeah. Sorry. Well, we'll find ourselves in an interesting juncture. This changes matters considerably. But honest, Governor, this time, Nash, this time we ain't got nothing more to hide. Very well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed with your cross-examination. Yes, my lord. This is it. The moment I've been waiting for. And here we have no choice but to press. We have to press every single statement, so. Proceed like normal. When you say geezer, I presume you mean the victim and the proprietor of the shop, Mr. Windybank. Who else? Sorry, I mean, that's right. We was keeping a close eye on the entrance of the gaff, obviously. But we never thought no one was gonna come out of the back room like that. Back room being the pawnbrokery storeroom. Yeah, that must be where it popped up from. Only place it could have been. So it would seem the victim was already in the storeroom when these brothers entered the premises. Which means Ginny must have been in there at that point as well. But that doesn't make sense, does it? Ginny had threatened Mr. Windybank to the storeroom with her at gunpoint. Then why would he have emerged from the same room all alone when the brothers arrived? Oh, I don't know. Did you see the accused at the time? Oh, that Maltula. Couldn't tell ya. Now wait, cobber. We've had bigger fish to fry then. I mean, the old geezer just lost it. You mentioned that Mr. Windybank shouted those words in your previous testimony too. However, you claimed that you heard him yelling them on the other side of the storeroom door. Did we? But the truth is, he was shouting those words at you, wasn't he? Yeah. Was the victim Mr. Windybank wielding a gun at the time? Was he ever? Blimey lummy. A great ugly barrel he had, pointing straight at me front this piece. So what you're saying is, you definitely saw Mr. Windybank with a gun at that time, is that right? It is, Gav, it is. Spot on. And all of a sudden, he came at us, he did. It was bedlam. I didn't know who was going for who. Who was going for who? We were clearly all going for each other. Like Nash said, we thought we'd had it. I mean... Out of the water. Yes, I noted that you mentioned I noted that you mentioned the counter in your previous testimony too. Well, yeah, of course we did. He knocked over a load of books and candlestick, some skull, whatnot. That got tangled in some marionette. Knocked over a picture frame, knocked them scales on the floor. So in fact, it wasn't the sound of the gunshot that shocked you and made you knock those things off the counter. Well, big bruv here went flying over that counter like a gunshot, I can tell you. Then the old geezer pinned him. He did, Nash, he did. If you hadn't been there, the bloke would have flattened me like a bloomin' pancake in seconds. At the time in question, the alarm was raised at the local police station via a secret cable from the pawnbrokery. There was a button under the counter used to activate it, which was presumably pressed by the victim. That's right, when the brothers fled the scene and back onto the street, they ran straight into the arriving police, didn't they? Poor Mr. Windybank. He did everything he could to protect his shop. Were you intending to shoot Mr. Windybank? No, never. I was just, looking out for me bruv, wasn't I? He was being flattened, don't forget. By a man whose shop was being burgled, yes. And then, the man fled into the storeroom when you pointed your gun at him, is that it? Yeah, that's it. He shoved me away, then ran off through that door and shut himself in. There's something about that last remark. Something that doesn't quite ring true. I wonder why Mr. Windybank ran away into the storeroom. What? Well, according to what everyone's saying, Ginny was in there waiting for him, with a gun. Ah, yes, that's right. Gina allegedly used Mr. Windybank's gun to threaten him and force him to open the storeroom door. In which case, how did the gun end up in Mr. Windybank's hands again? I have no idea, but that is strange, isn't it? This little inconsistency could be significant. I should make a mental note of it. Look, the point is, Mimi Bravir. That's right, Nash, that's right. Mimi Bravir. You say you had nothing to do with it? Nothing at all. Nothing, Gov, nothing. The old geezer went and shut himself in the back room, didn't he? Locked it was, from the inside. We know it was, because we tried to open it. It was a decent door, that one. Good and strong. Wouldn't budge an inch. So in the end, the situation remains unchanged. Inside the storeroom with the pawnbroker, there was only one other person. The sole person who could possibly have shot the victim, the accused, Miss Gina Lestrade. Ah! It would indeed appear so. What say you to that, Counsel? I don't know. Was there anyone else apart from Gina who could have possibly shot Mr. Windybank? Mr. and Mr. Skulkin. Hey, what? What's that look for? From the moment you admitted that you encountered the victim face to face that night, the course of this trial changed completely. It did? What is your point, my learned friend? The question we must answer is, who could have shot Mr. Windybank? And it is the belief of the defense that the defendant is not the only possible answer at all. You have my attention. In that case, let us return to this plan of the premises. The victim was killed inside the storeroom, which was locked from the inside. Those are the facts. So pray, what are the possible answers to the question of who shot the man could there be? Counsel, you must now provide an answer to the court in respect of two conundrums. Two, my lord? Twice as many chances to be right, maybe. Indeed. Namely, from what location did the culprit shoot the victim? And furthermore, who was the victim at the time? Understood, my lord. Well, you're alright, Runo. Not entirely sure, but there's one thing I am sure about. If I can prove that there is a credible new alternative to what happened, it would change Gina's prospects hugely. So now, time for some clarity. Show the court in this plan the answers to the questions posed by his lordship. If you believe someone else could have killed the victim, indicate from where that person could have fired the gun. The defense believes the culprit could have shot the victim from this location here. And an answer to the second question. Assuming the culprit fired from the location indicated, where was the victim at the time? The defense believes that the victim would have been in this position here. What are your answers? What your answers in fact show is that your own position is as absurd as those you have indicated on the plan. What are you saying? What Lord Vensis is saying, Counsel, is that your answers are clearly flawed. Whoop, wait. Oh, wait. I did it the other way around. So the questions are, from where did the victim shoot the victim? Where did the culprit shoot the victim, and where was the victim at the time? Well, I don't see why we can't show that someone other than Ginny should have been in the storeroom, do you? Yes, that's the right way of looking at it, I suppose. Someone other than Gina in the storeroom. It's the best move here. Should I try again, or gather more information first? The defense would like to point out the locations again. Well, you appear to be a glutton for punishment. So now, time for some clarity. Yeah, it's literally the other way around. I'm a dumbass. Whoopsie. Defense believes the culprit could have shot the victim from this location here. Wait, shit! Messed up again. Whoopsie. No. I literally had... Oh my god. I'm a dumbass. Yeah, it literally makes zero sense like that. Fuck, I'm such an idiot. You still have to shoot from inside the storeroom. So it's here. Fuck, I'm a fucking idiot. The culprit shot the victim from outside the storeroom. Continue. Mr. Windybank died instantly from a bullet wound in his back. Looking at the stain of blood on the storeroom floor, it doesn't appear that the body was moved after death, which tells us that he was almost certainly shot while he was in the storeroom. However, the crucial point is, where was the shooter when the fatal bullet was fired? So you are adamant that the shot was fired from outside the storeroom. Well, according to the Skulkin brothers' earlier testimony, I pulled my gun on him, and then he legged it through that door into the back room. Mr. Windybank ran through the door. We have to assume that the door was open at the time. Ah! It was at precisely that moment when the victim was fleeing for his life. That his brother had the perfect opportunity to shoot the man in the back once he was inside the storeroom. Yeah, I read this line, yeah. His brother had the perfect opportunity to shoot the man in the back once he was inside the storeroom. Oopsie. Yeah. Gah! Come to think of it, do you remember what the prosecutor said at the start of the trial? Moving on to the findings of Scotland Yard's coroner, his report states that the bullet entered the body on a rising diagonal trajectory. It means that the victim was likely shot by someone significantly shorter in height than himself. Poor man shot while he was running away as fast as he could to safety. Of course, he would have been leaning forward as he was running away. So even if the bullet was fired horizontally, it would still have entered his body on an upward trajectory. So the culprit isn't necessarily someone shorter than Mr. Windybank. I'm sure my learned friend can have forgotten that the storeroom door was found closed and locked from the inside. You claim the victim was shot as he fled into the room. Do you also claim his corpse is dexterous enough to turn the key in the lock? Ah, but what if someone else locked the door? Yes, there was someone else who could have locked the storeroom door. Is that so? Very well then, counsel. Present your hypothesis to the court. In that scenario just described, the defense's assertion is that the victim was shot from outside the storeroom. In which case, who shot and locked the storeroom door from the inside? Yeah. Now, this is gonna be a bit fucky, because there's really only one option for this, and it's not gonna be something you like to see. Obviously, the person who locked the door was the only other person inside the storeroom at the time. The defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. That's absurd! You're suggesting that the accused deliberately engineered the sealed room? For what possible reason? Hang on. Alright, I'm back. Such actions will only serve to tighten a noose around her neck. I'm inclined to agree, I must say. Well, counsel. Yes, it's a tricky one, that, isn't it? Hang on, fuck. Yeah, a lot of interruptions today, it's fine. Half-baked notions have no place in my courtroom. Counsel, remember that, please. But of course, Ginny would have locked the door. Almost goes without saying, doesn't it? It does? Well, if I was Ginny in that situation, I know I would have locked the door as quickly as I could. I mean, those two burglars have just fired a gun in their direction, hadn't they? Yes, obviously. Before the two brothers arrived, Miss Lestrade and Mr. Windybank were in the storeroom together. Now, I don't know what went on between them at the time, but at some point, Mr. Windybank must have heard the intruders breaking into his shop and left the storeroom. Intruders, eh? That's bruv. If your theory is correct, that would leave the accused alone in the storeroom. Yes, it would. Then probably only moments later, the victim fled back through the storeroom door hoping to escape danger. Hit in the back by the bullet, Mr. Winnieback fell to the floor where he was, just inside the storeroom. And what we have to ask ourselves now is, what would the defendant have done in that moment? Ah, I see where you're going with this. Outside the storeroom was a terrifying killer who had just murdered Mr. Windybank. As soon as that thought struck Miss Lestrade, she slammed the door shut and locked it, in order to save her own life. But we ain't the ones who done it. We ain't, Gov, we ain't. You gotta believe us. I mean, come on, we'd never shoot no one. That's blatantly untrue. I know for a fact that you would, but because before my own eyes you shot Mr. Sherlock Holmes. There's only one logical conclusion here. Mr. and Mr. Skulkin, you brothers had every opportunity to have been the true perpetrators of Mr. Windybank's murder. Where does this leave us? You mean to say it wasn't the pickpocket who shot the pawnbroker after all? You should have known it was those three brothers. They look shady as a dense forest. It was amazing, Runo. All the members of the jury seem to be firmly on your side now. I know, first time ever. Probably the last. Well, I think you've done it. Surely they'll give a verdict of not... An admirable effort, my learned friend. Hang on. An admirable... Wait, I already read that. Whoops. What's this now? He's laughing? You find the situation amusing, Lord Van Zieks? I for myself find the defense's argument most persuasive. I dare say. Such chicanery is the bread and butter of the street performers in your provincial eastern nation. But such blatantly malicious conjuring tricks amount to nothing more than inexcusable pettifoggery here. What? The hypothesis you put forward so ostensibly credibly cannot, and will not stand. Because, you see, it contains a fatal flaw. A fatal flaw? Do you mean to tell me that you're unaware of your logic's failing? I say, Lord Van Zieks. Might be an idea to explain this body conjuring trick or whatever it is to the troops on the ground, hmm? The fatal flaw in my learned friend's argument is really very simple to understand. Assuming you're not too dim-witted to count bullets. By George, count bullets? Oh dear. You noticed that? He noticed then? Huh? What's everyone talking about? The council. Yes, sir? To the court, how many bullets were found at the scene of the crime? Two. 2 bullets. Correct. The first, that which hit the victim in the back, ending his life. And the second, that which struck the detective, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, on his arrival at the scene. Indeed. The defense presented a picture showing the damage caused by the second bullet earlier in the proceedings. The bullet which injured Mr. Holmes appears to have passed through his body to strike the calendar. Your lordship's understanding is correct. Furthermore, we know there are 2 firearms involved in the incident. The revolver belonging to the victim, Mr. Windybank, and the Skulkin brothers' revolver. The evidence shows that a single bullet was fired from each gun. Yes, indeed it does. A single bullet from each. Now then, my learned friend. You yourself told the court only moments ago that these 2 brothers shot Mr. Sherlock Holmes right before your eyes. Yes, I did. Oh my goodness, I think you'll find that if a single bullet that was fired from the brothers' gun hit Mr. Holmes, it means Windybank not shot by the same gun. Stop. Only 1 bullet. Stop. Exactly. Yes, this Nipponese street performer presented an ostensibly credible argument. However, it was never anything more than a diversionary trick with no hope of standing up to scrutiny. Ah! Order! 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 Pray forgive the discourtesy of flinging the dregs of this hollowed nectar into the public gallery. Lord Van Zieks. But this court needs to open its eyes. The accused, Miss Gina Lestrade, is no ordinary little girl. Despite her young years, she can, regrettably, no longer be described as a juvenile. No, the person in the dock is far from a law-abiding citizen. She has a past riddled with criminal conduct. The truth is, the accused broke into the pawnbroker on the night in question with loathsome intent. As we can see beyond doubt in this print, which depicts her threatening the life of threatening the victim with her murder weapon. And I have here in my possession one more piece of evidence the prosecution wishes to present. That disc. I'll be taking whatever it is of McGilda's down to the yard, thank you very much. No, don't give it to him. He's mine, that is. Mine. I'm sorry, miss. But anything belonging to McGilda has to be taken in as evidence now. Yes, the music box disc. McGilda's music box disc. The very day before the hateful murder of Mr. Windybank, the accused attempted to make off with this article, which clearly does not belong to her. With none of the subtlety of a pickpocket, I might add, but by brute force and brazen impudence. Good gracious. Make no mistake, any sympathy for the accused on account of her years is misguided and dangerous. There are no depths to which this girl would not stoop if pushed, no crime she would not commit. The court forgets that fact is at its peril. I see. I think it would be prudent to take this music box disc into evidence, counsel, as a grim testament to the defendant's character. Lord Van Zieks, Inspector Gregson, what? Yes, Inspector. We had a meeting yesterday at the yard with the prosecution service and, I think it was agreed that the disc wouldn't be used as evidence. What's this all about? Why is the inspector acting strangely? That's the first time he said anything to Van Zieks at all. I am unaware of any such meeting. But those were the instructions right from the top. The government bigwigs are insistent. Inspector, I am the prosecutor, and I alone determine how to present my case. Your warning is noted. Thank you. The prosecution wishes to proceed with submitting this disc as evidence, my lord. Indeed, bailiff. The prosecution has established the accused's motive, opportunity, and baseness of character. There is nothing more to add. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I await your informed decisions and rest my case. I don't believe it. I had the jury on my side for once, for all of 5 minutes. Oh dear, it wasn't even for 5 minutes, Bruno. My lord, I wonder if I might say something at this point. Proceed, Mr. Foreman. Been stumbling about in a bit of a fog up to now, if truth be told, but all of a sudden, the answer is boldly obvious to me and my men. There's only one thing for it. Oh no. Very well, the court will hear from the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, you will present your leanings as to the defendant's culpability.
You
We have a consensus among the jury, it seems. We have a consensus among the jury, it seems. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth. That's my line. I wrote that for Hurley. How dare you use it against us? Don't worry, Iris. I don't think we're finished yet. There is still more to this case than we realize. There must be, because there's one thing that I'm absolutely certain of. Gina didn't shoot Mr. Windybank. That's beyond any doubt. Very well. We will proceed with the second summation examination of the day. Mr. Foreman, are you the other jurors ready? Get up, squadron is primed and ready for action, sir. Very good. Now, so ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will each explain on what grounds you have now determined the defendant to be guilty. Once a rogue goes a rogue, I say, Different breed to us law-abiding citizens. If only 2 bullets were found at the scene, I would say the whole case is done and dusted. You don't need a scary stereoscope to see the truth here. Every which way you look at it, it was that pickpocket. I never imagined that simple operation would cause me such grief. The accused attempted a theft on the previous day. I can see I'm in for a busy day ahead. I am ballistic expert. I've seen many shootings. There's nothing I do not know about guns. Would seem there is little remaining of room for doubt. I hate to have to admit, I was rather bowled over by the argument put forward by the chap in black. When that fell apart like a house of cards, I saw that I jolly well had been hoodwinked. Well, no more. The whole courtroom was turning against me. It's not fair, Iris. The prosecutor's being mean. Just because Ginny's done something she shouldn't have done in the past doesn't make her a murderer. Allow me to savor this fruity vintage while I savor the spectacle of your fruitless debate on the matter. Here's to the truth coming out, eventually. That's enough preamble. Counsel, proceed with the summation examination. Yes, my lord. So we're going to press all of them. We're going to save the second juror for last, though. Just because Mr. Strad has a history of pickpocketing, she must be guilty of murder. Is that what you're saying? Ah, well. Are all members of the British Army so quick to judge? I beg your pardon? Are you mocking Her Majesty's Armed Forces, the greatest military organization in the world? No, I'm simply illustrating my point. Making assumptions about people because they're a soldier or a pickpocket is wrong and dangerous. Well, yes, might have a point there, I suppose. Let's not forget the girl had already shown she had it in her from before. She's clearly a criminal sort through and through, can't deny it. When you say that she'd shown she had it in her, are you referring to this? Exactly. Tried to swipe that only a day later, Or am I mistaken? Not exactly. Given that I was actually there at the time, it's hard to refute that. I've never actually seen the real thing. Can't wait to have a closer look at it. Oh yes, of course. Mr. Holmes did use his caramel bars to make a copy of the disc, didn't he? And then ordered every type of music box he could find from across Europe. We still don't know what tune it plays though, do we? Well, I'd love to see how the original compares to Hurley's copy. So, McGilda's disc. Could it be a clue somehow? Perhaps we should examine it in more detail. Which... we shall. No we won't. Because we pretty much already have. Oh, yes. Oh, Bruno, look! This is blood! Yes, you're right, just a small smear, but definitely blood. Actually, I feel as though I might have noticed that before. Then it's my time to shine again. Thought I'd be waiting forever. Alright, hold still with that disc, Bruno. Can we get this done quickly, Iris? In a flash. Oh, a lovely bright shade again. Wait, that color. What is it? What is it? It's just that green. It's not the first time we've seen that color, is it? It's all coming together now. So, if I've understood correctly, you need two pictures, a left eye one, and a slightly different right eye one. Yeah, exactly, then you can see the scene in three dimensions. Like this. So, we have two bullets. I don't suppose you can see anything useful with them? I think you'll find that no matter how much you squint, the truth of the situation always looks the same here. The only person who could have shot the victim is that girl in the dock. How can you be so sure of that? Think about it. The Skulkin brothers shot the great detective, didn't they? Yes, that's been mentioned once or twice. Well then, surely it's coming into focus now, isn't it? This is a waste of time. I'm not going to change this man's mind anytime soon. Now this one's important to press. Would you please stop muttering about things that have nothing to do with this trial, sir? The defendant's life is on the line here. Well, the thing is, I couldn't really say that it has nothing to do with this trial, to be honest. Huh? I mean, there's no question that the man was shot, but the bullet had simply vanished from his stomach. It's quite inexplicable, don't you think? I almost don't want to ask, but this surgery you've been muttering about all this time, you were operating on... What was that fellow's name now? Hurdlich? No, Hurlock? No, Hairlock? Sherlock Holmes, by any chance? Yes, good lord. Who's that Hairlock fellow? What? You're the surgeon that operated on Mr. Holmes? That's right, using the very latest anesthesia techniques I might add. It was a fairly major op, I can tell you. This is crazy. Let me see, the fellow was brought in not long after midnight, if I remember correctly. They said he'd been shot by some criminal or other, so I opened him up like a shot. The funny thing is, I went over his insides with a fine-tooth comb and couldn't find a bullet anywhere. So I'm afraid I had to throw up my hands and stitch the fellow back up. I hate to state the obvious, but... Yes? Surely that's because the bullet is still at the scene of the shooting. The counsel for the defense is correct. As is clearly shown in this photographic print. The bullet that the Skulkin brothers fired at Mr. Holmes hit him in the stomach region. Then exited his body, lodged into the shop wall where the calendar was hanging by the door. I think you'll find it's really quite simple if you just consider the problem three-dimensionally. Who do you think I am, son? Well, juror number 4 is about the best I can do. Also, I just realized I read some of that juror number 4's voice, which I already kind of forgot. As soon as I saw the wound to the man's stomach, I flipped him over. Like a pancake? Are you saying that you checked his back? Of course I did, and there wasn't a trace of injury. No sign that the bullet had left the body at all. What? That's the point. The only logical conclusion was that the bullet was still somewhere in the man's innards. Which is exactly what I said about slicing him up. I'm still none the wiser, even now. How many times do I have to say it? Can somebody please explain how it happened? Can someone please solve this mystery? It's almost as much of a mystery as this jury was put together. Sir Holmes' surgeon is on the jury. I've experienced some coincidences recently, but this is ridiculous. I'm as surprised as anyone. But there's no question that Mr. Holmes is shot. Well, that's what the police told me when they brought him in. How bad were his injuries, Doctor? It was in a bad way. He had lost a huge amount of blood, you know. I suspect he was shot at quite close range, too. Because his skin was badly burnt around the point of entry. Burnt? As I said, I flipped the fellow over and examined his back, but there was no sign of an exit wound. Which is why I thought I'd better locate the lug and pop it out. Yet you say you found no bullet inside the patient. Well, I wouldn't have done, would I? Because it's in the wall of the pawnbrokers. But how did it get there? I need someone to solve this mystery before it drives me to insanity. If only there was some expert in ballistics who could help. Even if he looks extremely untrustworthy. Hint, hint, not judge. Just pit the guy with number 6. So we have a disappearing bullet on our hands. What do you mean you're in for a busy day? Forgot to say stop. Do excuse me, stop. I'm a communications officer, stop. Communications officer? Does that have something to do with sending telegrams? Everything from personal messages written by members of the public to the latest news in the capital. I convert all the messages into Morse code and tap it out to the entire world electronically. To the entire world? Thousands of miles of cable under the sea, stop. Worldwide communication network, stop. Information transmitted to and from all corners of the globe, stop. Ah, yes. She was getting equally worked up about radio waves or the like before, wasn't she? I specialize in especially communicating information from government departments and newspaper offices. I see. I'm sure I still have to wire the newspaper reports of today's guilty verdict later. But no sleep for me tonight, I imagine. Let's just finish the trial first, shall we? I thought you were just a tourist. Good day. I am visiting London for sightseeing. I would like to take bus to Crystal Tower, please. There's no way he's just a visiting tourist. So you're a ballistic expert? Who knew? I have much experience with guns. I have lived through many, how do you say, extreme, violent, bath of, no, blood of, extreme violent bloodbaths, perhaps? Those, extreme violent bloodbaths. English is very difficult tongue. Considering the sort of people you associate with, I'm surprised you still have a tongue. Anyway, if you have questions about bullets and guns, you ask me. There's nothing I do not know. No mystery I cannot solve. He's very confident in his knowledge of guns, that's for sure. But, if possible, please, only in Russian language. He's not very confident in his knowledge of English, though, is he? No. Still, we should bear it in mind. He's our man if there's a mystery about guns or bullets. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, whoop, whoop. Van Zieks has managed to convince everyone. When you have eliminated the impossible, he said, but he hasn't. We're going to fight back. We need more material. And we have to fight back. We have to turn this trial around again. Shit. Those two statements clearly contradict the idea that all I do is pit jurors against each other. Oh, ballistics... I forgot about that line. Oh, ballistics expert. Pitting. P-I-T-T. On the night in question, Mr. Holmes is shot by one of the Skulkin brothers, but since there was no sign of an exit wound on his back, we must assume the bullet didn't pass through him. However, no bullet was found lodged in Mr. Holmes' body either. Furthermore, a bullet was found lodged in the wall of the shop where Mr. Holmes was shot. Juror number 6. Hello, my name is Villain. Pleased to meet you. This apparent contradiction in the facts is that is so clearly troubling juror number 4. Are you able to explain the mystery? I have seen a very similar situation in Motherland. It was night. There was a blizzard. I was running away along mountain road in freezing cold. Golly. The snow was piling high on both sides of the road. It was very narrow and dangerous. My pursuers had hunting rifles and they were on dog sleds. Mental note. Don't ask too many questions. I was shot from behind and I fell down in snow. In this situation very similar to what I hear today from doctor. They could not find bullet in my body. And no sign of, how do you say, exit wound. Then where did the bullet go? Bullet never hit me. Or if it never hit you, why'd you fall down? Bullet hit frozen wall of ice very close to my side. What? One small piece, very sharp, broke away from the lump of ice and pierced my body. It made deep wound that looked just like bullet wound. Good gracious. Of course, the piece of ice quickly melted inside me. Not the solution to mystery of disappearing bullet. But that doesn't answer the question at all. Shooting happened in a pawnbroker's shop. Not some snowy mountain road in another country? Just an idea, but we might not be looking at exactly the same scenario here. True now. Where exactly was Hurley shot again? Well, according to the report, in his stomach, sort of around this area, I think. Well, that's precisely where he always wears a little pouch on his belt. A pouch, actually. Might have noticed something like that. Yes, a pouch. It's where he keeps 3 glass vials of very dangerous chemicals that he uses in his investigations. What, really? Doctor, where's the pouch Mr. Holmes was wearing? Well, Fellow had nothing like that on his person when he arrived at the hospital, as far as I can remember. If I may, Lord Van Zieks. While I realize it is forbidden for the prosecution to interject during a summation examination, I should inform the defense that I have the pouch in question in the antechamber outside the courtroom. Sorry? As I understand it, when the police arrived on the scene and found Mr. Holmes injured, they removed the pouch in order to assess the wound. Ah, thank goodness. I thought I was getting forgetful for a moment. Since then, it has been in my safekeeping along with all other evidence relating to the case. I can personally vouch for the fact that it has not been touched since the incident occurred. Very well. Well, extremely unconventional during a summation examination. I must demand the prosecution present the item in question with all speed. Bring forth Mr. Sherlock Holmes' pouch. I see. Oh, I forgot to press number 2. Wait, fuck, I just realized I forgot to press juror number 2. Oh, who cares? I don't know, I can do it anyway. After. So this is a pouch worn by Holmes on the night in question, is it? Look at that. One of the files is broken and the leather around it is scorched black. It was almost as if the file exploded. Exploded? So, that night, the bullet from the Skulkin brothers' gun struck Mr. Holmes' pouch. It was the glass file exploding that caused the fellow's injury. This bullet did not penetrate victim, but was deflected into a wall of shop. A delightfully complex aroma. Well, it would appear one mystery has been solved at least. Though it has no bearing on the truth of this case. The bungling and burgling brothers shot the detective, and the accused shot the pawnbroker. The pertinent facts of the case remain unaltered. Ugh. But at least the mystery is solved. I can sleep easy tonight. Thank you, young man. Thank you very much. Glad I could help. Due to its bearing on the conundrum just solved, the court will sequester this scruffy pouch as evidence. Are these pouches and scrappy? Now, the summation examination. It would appear the defense is somewhat struggling to alter opinion, Please, my lord, a little more time. After all, this new piece of evidence could be a valuable clue. You can't afford to overlook anything here, Ryunosuke. There's still a way to turn this around. Somehow, I'm sure of it. We don't need to press the rest of them. It's the number of bullets, has you convinced? Only 2 bullets were fired, and the 2 guns that fired them have been examined by the police. When the parlor maid asks me how many are invited for dinner, I always tell her to count the table settings. Well, that's logical, I suppose. Although, yes. Sometimes after dining, crockery does go missing. 1 or 2 guests rather like to find china. Is your employer done with thieves? So I suppose. If there was another bullet somewhere, of which you are unaware, I'd have to reconsider my position. A 3rd bullet somewhere on the scene. Could that be possible? Allow me to show you then. The 3rd bullet. Before we do that, we have to examine this. It's really scorched bad here. Oh, the strap is broken, look! This must be where the bullet hit then. Let me see. What the iris? Look! Behind where the broken file was. Do you see it? Ah, that's Skulkin Brothers' bullet. A stroke of luck that hit its pouch. This is an amazing discovery. What this means is, there were 3 bullets fired at Windy Banks that night. We found exactly what the juror was talking about. The 3rd bullet. Time to press that juror again, I think. Well, press now. You can just... Nah, you can just present it. Here it is. We discovered it just now. Yes, on the night in question, Windy Bank's pawnbrokery, another bullet was fired. What is this new trickery, you Nipponese conjurer? Where did you find that bullet? It was lodged inside Mr. Holmes' pouch. What? This pouch was removed from around Mr. Holmes' waist before he was taken to the hospital, and since then it has been touched by no one. Do you mean to say the shot fired by the Skulkin brothers that night? Yes, as your lordship has surmised, It hit his pouch. But that makes no sense whatsoever. We already know the whereabouts of the bullet fired at Mr. Holmes. It's clearly visible in this photographic print. Ah! 2 guns from the scene have already been submitted into the court record as evidence. Yes, that of Mr. Windybank and that belonging to the Skulkin brothers. An examination of both guns revealed that only a single bullet had been fired from each. Ah. What? That must mean... That's right. We now know that on the night in question, 3 bullets were fired. However, only 2 bullets were fired from the guns recovered from the crime scene. And until that incontrovertible inconsistency is somehow explained, we cannot and must not pass judgment. Ah. Ah! Order. While the summation examination remains incomplete, the court has been presented with new facts. Facts that would appear to shake the very foundations upon which this case against the defendant has been built. This is my prerogative in this situation. I hereby temporarily suspend the summation examination. By Jupiter! What? Bailiff, bring the witnesses back to the stand at once. Witnesses? Governor, were you listening to proceedings while the defense carried out the summation examination? We was, Governor, we was. Perhaps we can dispense with the tedious preamble. Simply answer this one question. A 3rd bullet has been identified at the scene of the crime. What do you make of that? Make of it, Gov? I'll make nothing of nothing if I can help it. Is it one of yours? Go blimey, Gov, go blimey. Not a chance. In that case, do you have an accomplice? What, eh? What? Never! The Skulkin brothers work alone. It's just the 2 of us. That's our trademark. How soon we forget poor Sulky? Only 2 of the bullets from the crime scene originated from the firearms we have in evidence. The 3rd bullet was fired from another gun. Where is it? No, me, that's an head scratcher. Counsel for the defense. Yes? I should like to hear your thoughts regarding these new developments. The 3rd bullet and the mysterious missing firearm from whence it came. Thinking back over all the testimony we've heard and all the evidence we've seen, I think I'm starting to form a picture of what really happened that night. My lord, I think it's clear what this 3rd bullet tells us about the Skulkin brothers. On that night at Windybank's pawnbrokery, the brothers must have been working with a 3rd man. The witnesses are clearly doing their best to cover up the existence of this accomplice, but the evidence all points to the fact that there was someone else present, someone carrying a gun. An accomplice, you say? Pixwill. These protracted proceedings have already forced us to endure two summation examinations. Yet in all that time, there's been not a murmur of a 3rd man. This apparently wraith-like being exists. The court must be shown hard evidence. Without it, this fantasy will be crushed. The prosecution demands answers on 2 counts. Firstly, the proof, evidence, this accomplice was ever at the scene of the crime. And secondly, the identity of this spurious character. Skulkins are lying. I know that. But how can I ascertain the identity of the person they're hiding? Well, counsel, I'm supposed to prove the existence of this accomplice and reveal the person's identity even. In response to the prosecution's demands, my lord, the defense is ready. I believe I can prove all the answers the prosecution demands. So, my Nepalese friend, despite the swimming eyes, you seem to think you have something to say. This promises to be interesting. This promises to be interesting. I have to push forward now. There's no other option. I need to use every single piece of evidence available to me if it will make a difference. In that case, counsel, I would ask you to present the evidence without delay. On the night in question, in the moments leading up to the death of the victim, what proof do you have that there was a 3rd intruder present at the scene? Oopsie, went the wrong way. The evidence is right here, in this portfolio. By Jove, that portfolio again, is it? Do you expect the court to rifle through your papers itself? Be more specific. You claim one of those blood samples proves the presence of the stud intruder. Well, which one is it? What am I looking at here? Appears to be some green paint or such like around the bullet hole in the middle of the calendar. That's a bloodstain, my lord. A bloodstain? Green blood. Curious, even for you. Is the court to understand that the intruder was some unhuman creature? It's something developed by Mr. Sherlock Holmes. What a great detective! New invention. Stop. Not yet appeared in the story. Stop. It's this, you see. It doesn't have a name yet, though. This fog sprays a chemical that reacts with the different elements in people's blood to change its color. Different elements? Of people's blood? Yes, everyone's blood is slightly different, you see, because it's made up of different elements. So by seeing what color it changes, you can tell in a flash whose blood it is. Well, that brings a whole extra dimension to looking at blood. Talk of blood in courtroom. Stop. Very exciting. Stop. As an example, this one shows the blood of the victim, Mr. Windybank. Striking blue. Yes, so you see the green color of this bloodstain on the calendar shows that somebody else was shot in the main part of the shop. Now hold fire there, young man. Could be from some unrelated incident, couldn't it? No, it's not unrelated. The date showing on the calendar is the date on which Mr. Windybank was killed. By golly. Therefore, we can assume that whoever was shot on the same day. But whose blood is it? Well, the Skulkin brothers in the stand don't appear to be suffering from any gunshot injuries. Which means it must be blood for somebody else. The third intruder, in fact. Whose identity the court is still waiting to hear. You can't delay this any longer, my learned friend. Who is this alleged third intruder? The man's name is Egbert Benedict. Egbert Benedict? Who on earth are you talking about, counsel? He paid a visit to Windybank's pawnbroker on the afternoon before the incident took place. The accused attempted to deceive the pawnbroker into releasing this article into her possession. That's right. The man identified by the defense, Mr. Egbert Benedict, then attempted to take the article from the defendant by force. Broker. Yes, sir? I believe this filthy pocket thief has just redeemed an article from you, no? Yes. The article in question belongs to me. I demand for it to be returned, but to be returned at once. Nah, that's a lie. What are you trying to pull? Give me back my overcoat, you wastrel. And needless to say, any music box discs too. Inspector Gregson was there at the time and can attest to what happened. In the end, it was the inspector himself who took the disc. Can you corroborate this account, Inspector? Yes, my lord. That's more or less what happened. Go blimey. And in the interest of being thorough, I asked Windybank for a print showing the fellow. Taken from one of his red-handed recorder. Gibbons. Whatever, wait. Gubbins. What the fuck is that word? Yes, that's him talking to Mr. Windybank that morning. You claim this man is the brother's accomplice. Well, Mr. and Mr. Skulkin? Never seen the geezer before in my life. On my life, Gov. On my life. Never seen him. Well, somewhat unsurprisingly, it appears our witnesses disagree with the assertion. I'm sure your lordship recalls my Lord Nipponese friend's actual assertion, which was that he could prove the identity of the alleged accomplice. Yes, and I can. Then show us the evidence. I agree, we must see proof that the clean-cut gentleman in the photograph is the filthy criminal you say he is. It's the last piece of evidence. I've had a feeling that something has been missing in this trial from the very start, but now I'm going to drag it back, kicking and screaming into the courtroom. Are you ready to present your answer to the court, then, counsel? Yes, my lord. The defense will present the evidence now. Proof that the man pictured in this photographic print was, in fact, the person struck by the third bullet. As I mentioned before, on the afternoon of the day in question. I might just closing something there. There you go. The defendant attempted, deceitfully admittedly, to reclaim this disc from Windy Banks, which is when the aforementioned Egbert Benedict appeared on the scene, I believe. This man then attempted to purloin the article from the defendant's possession, no? That's correct, my lord. I myself was present at the time. I was following this that a minor incident occurred. Of course, sir. Here's a disc for you. Very well. I shall bid you farewell. Say goodbye to style. Wait a minute. That disc is mine. Ah, what do you think you're doing, you little tramp? You've drawn blood, you filthy animal. Being a music box disc, it has countless small but sharp metal protrusions over its surface. Those protrusions caused Mr. Benedict's finger to bleed, and the resulting smear of blood is still visible on the disc now. Goodness, a bloodstain, is it? My assistant and I have just analyzed the bloodstain here in this very courtroom. Using my trusty fog again. Yes, and we added the results to this portfolio. I say, it's green. It's exactly the same color as the color around the calendar. The evidence is conclusive. The man calling himself Mr. Egbert Benedict, who was in Windy Banks earlier in the day, is the accomplice who was present at the scene of the crime that night. So there was someone else. Look at those two brothers now. They're sweating buckets. Boy, who are you talking about? It's boiling in here. My lord, it is the opinion of the defense. Mr. Egbert Benedict should be summoned to the courtroom to testify. It would certainly seem that we can ill afford to ignore this gentleman's apparent presence. This has gone on long enough now. This flagrant ignorance of the mechanics of law. Sherlock Holmes, you say? Yes, I've heard the name. Protagonist in a series of short stories for the vulgar class. A guarded detection or some such. And now you employ chemical substances devised by this fantastical persona in the highest court in the land. Do you expect us to take you seriously? The samples made by this plaything are not fit to be called evidence. So the bloodstain turned a shade of green. What of it? Here's to you successfully proving that no other blood in the world would turn the same color. Oh, well. Oh, yeah. I missed that. And pray, do you not even think of suggesting that we should take Mr. Holmes's word for it? See, right? Mr. Holmes' concoction a load of rubbish? I don't know, I mean, he's a great detective. What are you talking about? We can't let him get away with that. I knew it would come to this. Of course Mr. Holmes' invention isn't going to be recognized by any official body, but what other choice did I have? I'm just remembering what Father Christmas over there said before. About how he was temporarily suspending the summation examination. In other words, the examination isn't over yet, is it? Good grief, what did you just say, young girl? In a summation examination, the decision as to whether or not the trial continues is in the hands of the 6 jurors, isn't it? So the way I see it, it doesn't matter what certain other people think of Hurley's invention. At least, not for now. Yes, she's right. Young lady, you have quite a devious mind. It really just comes down to one thing. Whether these ladies and gentlemen of the jury are convinced about what you say, Runo. Is that about right, would you say? Or did I misunderstand something? Unbelievable. Mr. Holmes's partner is a force to be reckoned with. Iris Watson, Sharpshooter. After that shrewd persist of the situation from an entirely unexpected source, it must be acknowledged that the previous summation examination has yet to reach its conclusion. This is absurd. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court now looks to you for your final leanings in this matter. As proud citizen of Her Majesty's Britain, I'm sure you will come to fair, just conclusions. So then, set your final decisions in turn, please.
無罪
無罪有罪
有罪
無罪
2 called guilty and 4 called not guilty. Such is the outcome of the summation examination. My lord, with all due respect, this is an outrage. The prosecution refuses to accept this decision. On what grounds? If these jurors are persuaded by some half-baked concoction devised by a pretender to real police work, then they are too ignorant to be trusted with the judgment of anyone's guilt. I'm sorry, Lord Van Zieks, but the outcome of the summation examination cannot be ignored. The trial will continue. Ah! Ah! Nevertheless, we find ourselves in a rather awkward situation. The defense has very reasonably requested the subpoena for the new witness. But sadly, I fear that will be impossible. What? The name that the gentleman gave for himself, Edward Benedict, is quite clearly false. I don't believe it. Just when I'd managed to prove the man was there that night. Could I say something? Who was that, please? Who spoke? It was me, my lord. Juror number 5. What have you to say, madam? If possible. Inspector. Me, ma'am? I wonder if you might show the photographic print to me again. The one in which gentleman is shown. All right, yes. This one, you mean? Of Mr. Benedict. Yes. There's no doubt in my mind. Juror number 5? You don't mean to say... You know this man? Yes, I know him. What? No! Good gracious! Order. Order! Juror number 5, how on earth? I'm a communications officer, stop. As we can clearly see, the gentleman in the photograph is, stop. Also communications officer, stop. He works in my office, stop. Very talented operator, in fact, stop. He should be in the communication station now, stop. Tapping away on the telegraph, stop. This doesn't seem right somehow. I can't put my finger on why, but it doesn't feel right. I suppose we all imagine the accomplice would be some sort of hardened criminal. It's a bit unexpected to find out that he has a respectable job by day, whatever he gets up to at night. Yes, I suppose that's it. I suppose that's why I felt something was wrong. If the gentleman is at London's communication station, we should be able to subpoena him within the hour. Lord Van Zieks, if you please. Yes, my lord. Make the necessary arrangements with all haste. As your lordship bids. Court will recess for 1 hour. When the new witness arrives, we shall reconvene to hear the gentleman's testimony. Inspector Gregson? Yes, my lord. I should like to hear from you specifically about events at the pawnbrokery on the day in question. Come to my chambers during the recess. Yes, sir, my lord. Very well. Court is adjourned until 1:40 p.m. And finally, to be continued. I didn't want to cut it shorter, just because I didn't want to cut it shorter, but because I knew I was getting close to the end there. But I just remembered there's a lot of fucking dialogue in that part. Anyway, we finally managed to get this guy to come to court. Egbert Benedict, whoever he is. So next time on the Greatest Attorney Adventures, we're gonna hear what he has to say about the subject and see if we can try pinning him down to the crime, or at least seeing what he has to do with it. So, see you guys then. Take care.